in the chat, just so we know who's joined us and we can track you for attendance as well too. We'll get started here in a few minutes. So Gary, any predictions for Saturday? It's great exposure for the state of Iowa, with both Iowa and Iowa State being in the top 10 in college game day in Ames.
It's going to be a good game.
Yep.
That's the political answer.
Yes.
I think really, in all honesty, it's neither team really let the other team know what their capabilities are last Saturday, because the defense ruled our game, and it seems like UNI kind of basically did the same thing to Ames. So I don't think there's a lot yet to prove.
Yep.
It'll be good. I'm sure of that.
Yep. I think it's going to be a warm one. It's going to be pushing upper 80s, if not 90 on Saturday.
It'll be good on TV.
Yep. Looks like we have 33 people now, and that number should just continue to grow here in the next few minutes. LaDonna, is Gary with you again today or no? Oh, you're.
Yes, he will be with me.
Okay.
I was waiting for him to attend the meeting before I signed him in.
Sure, great. Well, I think we'll just go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to Iowa City Noon Rotary Club. It's great to see all the smiling faces this morning. My name is Eric Weiler, and I'm the Rotary president this year. We like to start each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone could just take a quick second and unmute yourself. And Devin is sharing the flag. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now that we've gone back to Zoom after being in person for a couple months, it was a little bit of a learning curve with all the features that Zoom offers. So we've asked Devin, he did such a great job our Zoom year, to come back and share with us some Zoom tips to refresh our memory. So Devin, if you could, please.
Yes, President Weiler, I'm happy to share the Zoom tips. So first of all, hot tip, if you have not updated your Zoom lately, get yourself over to the Zoom website, update your Zoom edition, because there's all sorts of features that they keep coming out with, and it's more secure, all that business. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, if you could sign into the chat, that is also the place where you can pull that little drop down of two and private chat people and say, what a wonderful job Eric is doing as president, or what a terrible job he's doing as president, all that stuff, like whispering in the meeting. And then finally, I will point out that you have a reactions tab somewhere in there with a little smiley face and a plus. You have just an inordinate number of emojis if you've downloaded the latest edition of Zoom. And you also have the raise hand option, which you can use to introduce your guests if you have questions, or if you're a visiting Rotarian. You'll have a chance to test that out here in a second. And then finally, the final one is check out your view options. There should be either what looks like a little movie film symbol, or like a little grid of 9 dots, and that'll give you gallery view or speaker view or immersive view, which I'm not totally sure what that is. I think it's like where it blows up the full screen of your computer. And then when we get to our speakers presentation today, you can choose between the presentation and speaker, or presentation and gallery view. And then you can, if you've got the latest edition, there should be a little slider so you can see how much of our presenter you want to see versus how much of his slides. Back to you, President Eric.
Great, thank you, Devin. So now is our first test or opportunity to test our Zoom skills. So we love to see new visitors every week. So if you're a visiting Rotarian, we ask you to go to the reactions tab, click on that and click raise hand. Or if you're a Rotarian who has a guest today, same thing, go to reactions and click raise hand. We'd love for you to introduce your guest today. And when we introduce the guest, for our guests, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello or wave to us. So Devin, if you could help me call on anyone who has their hand raised. I see right out the bat, Kelly Drown.
Hi there. Yeah, I got really enthusiastic. I was clapping and raising and doing all the things. So anyway, yes, I'm delighted to have actually one of Devin's and my colleagues, Emma Walls, join us today from the University of Iowa Center for Advancement. She is new to the Iowa City area, so I will have Emma unmute herself and share with us what area she supports for the Center for Advancement.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and Kelly for inviting me. Hi Devin, good to see you virtually as well. I fundraised for the College of Law, so if you know any lawyers, send them my way. I promise I don't bite, and I will take you to lunch. Thanks for having me.
Great. I see Diane has her hand raised.
Yeah, hi everybody. My guest today is James Gomez, who is also our guest speaker for today. And so I'll introduce him a little further when we get to the actual program. But James, you can wave and so people can see you in reality. Thanks.
And I see Ryan Bell has his hand raised.
Yep, good afternoon, Rotarians. Good to see everybody. I've got two guests. One is very familiar, one not quite as familiar, but Missy Forbes has been a guest here very consistently, and we're working on trying to get her into the club full time. So very pleased to have you again, Missy. You want to say hi real quick?
Hi, thanks again for having me. I'm excited to be here once again.
Good to have you. And my second guest has been here before too. It's my dear mother. Deb Bell is here from Southeast South Dakota. She's zooming in from 7 hours away. So she was here this weekend for Labor Day, and we had a great time. And I think I'm going to try to convince her to become a member of the club. She can just always zoom in. So, Mom, you want to say hi? You're on mute, Mom. She said hi. I can interpret South Dakotan. There we go. Back to you guys.
Great. Okay, well, Devin, did we get everyone? Did I miss anyone? Perfect. Okay. Well, yeah, a special welcome. It's great to see everyone, and feel free and come back and join us. We meet every Thursday at noon. And we always like to tell people Rotary does incredible work in our community, in our state, and around the world. And with more Rotarians, we can expand our reach and help more people in our community and around the world. So just really want to encourage everyone to bring a guest in the future. We love to see more faces. So now on to announcements. And if you have an announcement, again, if you could click raise hand. And Ryan, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. I was with you and a few other Rotarians with a check presentation. Would you want to just kind of tell us what the check presentation was about and what our community service project is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As you all, or many of you know, we're going to be planting some trees. We were awarded the district grant of $5,000, and then our club has a match of another $5,000, and we're investing all that into trees going into the ground, and then some Rotary benches that will accompany those parks in town. And to Eric's point, we had a little bit of a photo opportunity last week, where several of us gathered and presented a check to the city of Iowa City, who then will sort of leverage that into procuring our trees and lining it all up and honestly making it really easy. So maybe you've already done it, but put October 23rd on your calendar. Is that the right date? Is that a Saturday?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. And it's a bye week for the Hawkeyes.
Bye week for the Hawkeyes. You got nothing better to do, but let's plant some trees. We're going to be planting 100 trees in Willow Creek Park over on the west side of town. It's going to make a huge difference. So thanks for the opportunity to kind of lead this effort. And I look forward to planting them with you on October 23rd. Thanks, Eric.
And Ryan, did you say the amount of the check? Did you share that?
I don't know. I said 5,000 and then another 5,000. So hopefully everybody got it, but it's 10 grand. It's, it's 10 grand going, you know, right to a great cause that'll benefit our earth for generations to come.
We have a time yet?
Yes, we'll start at 9 a.m. that morning.
Thank you.
And we'll have jobs for all, you know, levels, including a helpful job is just to watch and take pictures. So even if you don't want to really get your hands dirty, we'd love to see you out there.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. And LaDonna, you have your hand raised. You have an announcement?
I do. Am I on? Yes.
Yes. Yep.
So Eric was talking about the incredible work in our community. And I thought I would let you know that I Can Read Songs has been delivered over 800 copies to many of the schools. And thanks to some help here from Gary Wickland, Joe Hughes, Tita Kaufman, Tara Minitos, and Ryan Bell. And then I had lots of other volunteers that were just dying to deliver, but they weren't needed yet. So thank you, Rotarians. You've done a great job of getting these songs distributed for our kindergarten teachers, children, and families.
Great. LaDonna, a special thank you to you and your committee for leading that effort. It's wonderful work with literacy and in our community. And I wanted to take a moment. Devin, I saw Devin listed in the Corridor Business Journal recently. Devin was just selected as one of the 40 under 40. It's 40 leaders under the age of 40 who are doing incredible things in our community. So Devin, congratulations on behalf of myself and the entire club. We're proud of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, some very kind nominators.
And Devin, the dinner is what I think late October is the formal dinner.
I think it's the 14th.
14th.
Probably.
Okay. Yep. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I wanted to let everyone know, a lot of people are already aware of this, but for the new folks, we try to get back in person. We were meeting at the Highlander for about 2 months in July and into August, and seeing the COVID numbers increase.
Frozen for everybody else too.
Yeah.
Yep. Last meeting, he was out for maybe 20 seconds. Eric, where'd you go? Come back.
This is in the air.
Sorry about that, guys. We need to have Devin or someone do a little song and dance when Zoom kicks me off on occasion to. But just for the benefit of our new folks, we'd been on Zoom for about a year and then attempted to go back in person in July and August. And just knowing that the numbers of not just COVID, but the Delta variant are increasing, knowing, you know, not all of our members are vaccinated. Some of them cannot get vaccinated. Some of them live with young children or older folks. Just to be safe for everyone and slow the spread, we decided in September to revert back to Zoom. We've got the technology, we know how to do it. So we'll keep tracking the numbers and we'll communicate with everyone. I'm guessing we'll probably stay on Zoom into October, but we'll communicate that as soon as we know it. So any other announcements that anybody has? Okay, I think we're ready for our program now, and I'd like to introduce Diane to introduce our speaker, James Gomez. So Diane, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, President Eric and fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure to introduce you today to today's speaker, James Gomez. James is the program director of Compeer Johnson County. And as a advisory board member of this organization, I've had the opportunity to observe James in his role and the really good work and organization that he's brought to the program. James grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa. He moved to Iowa City to attend the University of Iowa. earning a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology and a Master's in Mental Health Counseling. James became involved in nonprofit work during his time in college. He was an intern at NAMI, Johnson County, and a program developer for Our Place Peer Recovery Center in Iowa City. Today, James is a temporary licensed mental health counselor, and he works as the director of Compeer, Johnson County. James has a passion for helping folks afflicted by mental illness, and he values the power of social connection and social support. So I give you James Gomez.
Thank you so much, Diane, for that very, very kind introduction. And thank you everybody today for inviting me here to speak. I'm really, really excited to talk about Compeer. It's funny, I think whenever I start to talk about Compeer, I kind of go on and on because it's not something that everybody in our community knows about. And it's certainly something I've had to kind of explain to folks outside of our community. So with that said, let me share our presentation for today on our screens. Okay. All right. I think we're ready to go. So you can see here at the top, this is Compeer. This is our Compeer International logo. And you know, the title of our program today, which is Mental Wellness, starts with friendship. So that's kind of the tagline for Compeer as a program overall. But it also kind of touches on many themes that you'll kind of see weaved throughout our conversation today. So mental wellness, right, as opposed to just mental illness or mental health. Wellness, I think, is a much more over-encompassing or all-encompassing term when it comes to one's mental health or one's wellness overall. And then friendship, I think, is also a word that is broadly used within Compeer, and you'll kind of get a sense of what I mean by that as we go forward here. But this is actually a new logo that was distributed by the larger Compeer International program, which I'll talk about a little bit as well. And we just got it this year, so I've been very happy to show it off in its fresh new design. So this is what you'll be looking for if you want to interact with Compeer in our community after today, which I sure hope you do. So let's get started. This is our Compeer Johnson County mission statement. So this is a mission statement crafted specifically by our local affiliate. And that is Compeer seeks to create supportive friendships between trained volunteers and community members who receive mental health treatment in order to reduce social isolation and promote community engagement. So this is a mission statement that I've actually tooled around with myself since I've started here. I've added a couple of things to this statement. The first one is the supportive friendships between trained volunteers and community members. I specifically caveated that with community members who receive mental health treatment. So I think the old mission statement kind of pointed to community members who experience mental illness. And while that is true, and that is, you know, a population that we work with, I think mental illness, as I've studied it and as I've learned it, sometimes becomes a little too specific, right? And really that's not even a qualifying factor. And we'll kind of get into what qualifies people to participate in our program. But really anyone who receives mental health treatment for some sort of mental health condition is who is targeted in our program. And then the second part really is something else that I've wanted to get more specific about in our mission statement. And that is to reduce social isolation as well as promote community engagement, right? So we'll kind of talk about, you know, what is reducing social isolation and kind of how that is important, but also it's kind of overall promoting community engagement, right? So not only is it a one-to-one program, which I'll talk about more about when I get to the model of Compeer, but it also kind of benefits the community around us. So it promotes not only that interpersonal connection, but that connection with our larger community as well, just based on what these two folks are doing together. So this is kind of our mission. We'll put it out there. We're happy to say it. But obviously here today, you are all going to learn a little bit more about what that means, how we work, and kind of how we put this mission statement into action. So a little bit about why Compeer works. Why do we have this program? Why does it help people in our community? So the Compeer model is actually recognized as a best practice model for recovery from mental illness by the American Psychological Association. Compeer is also on the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices. So I kind of put these first two in there to show you that Compeer is not only a good idea on the surface of it, it also does have data behind it. There have been peer-reviewed academic studies looking at the Compeer model and seeing how it affects individuals' recovery process from mental illness and how it kind of promotes that in the long term as well. So there is data backing this. The Compeer model is evidence-based, which is great, right? And I think that's important to some people in some circles and not as important to other people in other circles. But I do think it bears mentioning it to show that this isn't just a friendly social organization. It is something that is supportive of healthy recovery. So the third point there, why Compeer works, social connection, really, it's a basic human right. And that's, kind of a broad statement, but I think intuitively we all understand that, humans at a very basic level thrive in social connections and social environments. I don't think it's overstating the human need for social connection to say that it is a part of living a healthy and full life. I can recall in my academic studies a case study in which infants were either given a lot of social connection or deprived of social connection. And those infants who were deprived of social connection actually started deteriorating in health. Cases like that show us that even from a young age, social connection really is necessary for us as people. And the last point there is social support is beneficial for overall well-being for everybody. So not just those who are growing and developing, not just those who are isolated from the world around them, not just those who have mental health conditions, but for everybody. And that's kind of, I think, why Compeer works, is it's not just for folks in mental health treatment. Really, anyone can be a part of Compeer, which is great, and why it's really a great source to bring people together. So a little bit of Compeer history before we talk about the nuts and bolts of the program. Compeer, as a program in general, was established in Rochester, New York in 1973. And it started at a National Health Institute site. And it started as a very small program with just 12 volunteers. And that program became so popular and successful that it kind of was able to move away from NHI and become its own program, become its own nonprofit program as well. And then after that point, the model began to be dispersed across the country. So program affiliates were popping up around the United States and building their own local Compeer programs, and began being dispersed internationally as well. So I know there's Compeer programs in Australia, New Zealand, the UK. I believe there's at least one in Canada as well. So Compeer now is referred to as Compeer International because it's more than just in the United States, and it's more than just in the East Coast, where there is a pretty substantial Compeer presence. So now there's over 4,000 volunteers internationally across programs, which is great and wild to think about, that we started at such a small place with 12 and have grown to thousands now. Looking specifically at Compeer Johnson County, Compeer Johnson County was established in the year 2000, and it's one of over 50 affiliates across the globe. So once it was established in the year 2000, we began building the program. I say we, I wasn't part of it at that point, but we, being some of the original founders, are still involved with the program today. So the program in Iowa kind of found its board of advisors in 2001, found its director, its program director in that year as well. And then finally in 2002 is when Compeer actually started making matches in the program. And so you might be wondering, well, what are the matches? What do we do here at Compeer? And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about next. But that's kind of a brief history on Compeer here, and kind of where it is in the world and how we got here to Iowa City. So this is Compeer. This is really the heart and soul of our program. Compeer kind of works on a one-to-one supportive friendship model. So I'm going to break down each parts of these kind of going forward here to show you kind of how we function and how we build this triangulated model of a supportive friendship. So at the heart of it You have the participant, you have the person who's coming to the program because they're interested in being matched up with a trained volunteer to engage in this supportive friendship, right? And so the participants, they come to our program either because they hear about us, they're searching for some sort of social outlet, or, and this is kind of most importantly, they are referred by their primary therapist. So actually, when we have people come through the door, we have people call or reach out via email, you know, I'm always happy to talk to them and sit down with them and give them information. But ultimately, we can't move forward with them being part of the program until we get a therapist referral. So that kind of goes to the next point there, which is the therapist. So we work with mental health professionals, and I put therapists because that's more of a broad term, right? So they could be psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, social workers, as long as they are in some sort of therapy relationship with their client or participant, then they're qualified to make that referral to us. And so that referral is necessary because it gives us a good idea of what the participant is looking to get out of our program, as well as it gets the therapist involved with the program as well. And the therapist is involved to the extent that we want them to be the expert voice in the room or in our model here of what is best for their client. So if they feel like this program is best for the client, they'll make the referral and they'll kind of be in communication with us. And then once we've identified a volunteer that would be a good match for the participant, we actually have the volunteer meet with the therapist and they ask questions of the therapist asks questions of them, and then ultimately the therapist gives the yay or nay, the green light or red light of whether or not they feel this volunteer would be a good match for their client. So they get to be the expert voice in the room and they get to be somebody who we are able to look to and kind of give and take information from. So it's great that collaboration and partnership is really important and definitely why they're kind of a core part of this model. The next part really would be the volunteer. So I'll kind of talk about all that goes into the volunteering process. But the volunteer really is also kind of the gas that makes the car go in our program, right? If we didn't have volunteers, we wouldn't be able to match people up. That said, we're not taking, you know, everyone who walks through the door. I mean, I'd like to take everyone who walks through the door, but the reality is not everybody, you know, is willing to, you know, take on these commitments, not that they're large commitments, but, you know, engage in these relationships and meet with therapists. Or maybe not everyone has an interest in working with folks who have a mental health condition. But I will find a place for every volunteer who's interested in Compeer, but the volunteers who are looking to be matched up in these supportive friendships, they go through a pretty rigorous vetting process. And we ask them to give a certain amount of their time. I ask them to stay in contact with me. Obviously, they're asked to meet with the therapist. And we kind of do our best to make sure that people who we welcome into Compeer, we can feel confident about matching them up with the participants who are referred to us. And so you can imagine that involves a lot of talking, a lot of getting to know them. So, you know, just as I do sit downs with the participants, I sit down with the volunteers and I gauge their interests, their history with mental health and mental illness, their knowledge on those sort of things, just so I can get a really comprehensive idea of how this person would handle certain situations, certain people. And that way I can kind of make a very informed choice about who I'm matching them up with. And that kind of brings me to my next point in this model, which is the Compeer staff. So as of now, the Compeer staff is really me. I'm the program director. I am our only paid staff member, and I answer to our advisory board. But our advisory board is not involved with making matches or making sure that these supportive friendships are functioning month to month, week to week. They serve a larger administrative role, whereas the Compeer staff, or me as the director in this case, is involved with all of these different parts, right? So I'm talking to participants, talking with volunteers, coordinating with therapists, you know, taking all the confidential information as well as making the matches, right? So I'm kind of a matchmaker, which is kind of an interesting role to be in. And I'm really actually loving that role. I really like working with people. I have a background in mental health, and matching up to people who have a lot of things in common, or who I knew would be very easy to get along with in a social situation. That's very rewarding. And then past the point of introducing them and making the match, I'm also going to be the person they come to if there's any issues, right? Maybe the participant's not hearing from their volunteer or vice versa, then that's going to be something that they call me about. And so that way I can kind of mediate any relational or communication issues that might come up, just to make sure that these friendships, these connections start off well and keep going well, and kind of take their natural course to something hopefully long-term and supportive and lasting. And so it's a great and really rewarding experience. And it's really important for the Compeer staff to be there supporting these connections. So that way, the whole system, this whole model can function as intended in ways that are in the best interest of the participant, and so that the volunteers can have a good experience with their match friend, and so the therapist feels that this program and these connections are kind of worth their time and effort, and staying connected with, and kind of making sure this is all running. So that's our model. I think it's been working pretty well. I'll get a little more specific about participants and volunteers. So to be a participant, as I said, you have to be referred by a primary therapist and receiving therapy from a referring professional at least once per month. So Compeer is not a mental health treatment. It is a complementary or supplementary, not really supplementary, but again, more complementary. I think what I was getting at was supportive, a therapeutic support, right, for whoever is experiencing a mental health condition. And I think that's why we ask the participants to already be in some sort of therapeutic relationship on a regular basis, right? So not only do we need the expert voice in the room, but we also need to make sure that our participants are in treatment, and that they know that, their therapist is their therapist. Their volunteer friend is not their therapist. They're there to be supportive and to, engage with them and get them engaged in the community. But, they're being referred by their therapist, who is, going to be the person who's providing that primary mental health care. And then the last thing we kind of ask the participants is to be mentally and emotionally ready to engage in and benefit from a new friendship, right? So if somebody is referred and, they're kind of going through the referral process, but they're in crisis, right? Whether it be a mental health crisis, a personal crisis, whatever it is, if they don't feel that they are not mentally and emotionally ready enough to engage in a new friendship, or if their therapist doesn't feel that they're ready to engage in a new friendship, that's something we need to know, right? And we need to be sure of that. And that's part of the reason that me, as the director, or the Compeer staff in general, tries to meet with all of our participants and get to know them pretty well, and hear about their lives. So that way we can kind of get a sense of that, as well as hearing from the participant themselves and their therapist, to get a really comprehensive picture of, if this person is ready for this new connection. Criteria for volunteers. So as I said, our volunteers go through a pretty thorough vetting process before we feel ready to match them up with somebody who's been referred to us. So they need to be 18 years or older. We're having adults only in our program. There are other Compeer affiliates that have Compeer matching programs that are for kids and for older adults. But we kind of have 18 years or older for the volunteers. So anyone over 18 can apply to be a volunteer. And then we ask them to fill out an application, and then we'll put them through a background check, as well as, and as I said, an in-person interview where I ask for more detail about their interests, their background, their knowledge, all of those things. And that's really important to me as the staff member to get a good sense of them. But it's also, I think, kind of important so that way they know, what is expected of them. And that doesn't all come out in the interview, but it is kind of a good place for them to start as far as what can they expect to get out of Compeer, or their experience to be like in Compeer. So once all of those things are completed, I will even check their references that they list on their application. So I'll call around to past employers, personal references, and, you know, at least get a couple people to give me a sense of what their impression and their experience of this person has been. And generally, you know, people who are listed as personal reference are giving glowing reviews, which is great, but it is necessary, and that is how thorough we are with our volunteers. The last step is kind of a volunteer training process that might take an hour or two to go over volunteer rights and responsibilities, you know, clarify what's expected of them. And then we ask volunteers to spend 4 hours per month with their Compeer match friend. So 4 hours a month is the bare minimum of what we ask. They can spend that with their match friend however they mutually agree to spend it. That could be 1 hour a week, 2 hours every 2 weeks, or 4 hours once a week, whatever it may be, whatever is best for both parties. But that is the minimum of what we ask, with some exceptions. You know, I am flexible enough to understand people travel, there are holidays, maybe extenuating circumstances come about that they can't connect with their match friend. But that is kind of what we ask people as they become a volunteer. So on the screen, you'll see a picture of me and our advisory board. So a very lively group of people. I bring them in to this presentation to show you that even though I am the only staff person in Compeer, I'm not working alone. I have a lot of support from some really great people, a lot of whom have been on the board for years and have a really good connection to our community. And that kind of really enriches our program and what we're able to do. And I've been very grateful for everything they've supported me in and everything that they do independently to support the program. So here's a quick snapshot of where we are currently. So we're a pretty small program in general. We have about 10 active matches, and I think I'm in the middle of matching, I think, 3 volunteers up, hopefully in the next couple months. We have about 17 people on our wait list. When I say people, I mean participants who have already been referred by their therapist, and at the time we just didn't have any volunteers to match them with, so we put them on a wait list. And we have 12 advisory board members. So I'll kind of like go on here to talk about what these numbers all mean for us, but you can kind of get a sense of the scope of our program. It's fairly small, and I think that's part of the reason why many of you today may have not heard of Compeer before. It has been bigger in the past, it has been smaller in the past, but you know, as I've stepped into the role of director, I've been really happy to try to promote Compeer in our community, as well as make a lot of active efforts to grow the program. So how am I going to do that? How do we do that moving forward? Volunteers, as I said, they are the gas that runs the car at Compeer, where you need volunteers always. So, you know, I've kind of made an effort to get us out there a little bit more, generate some volunteer interest. Although it is a process, as you saw, becoming a volunteer, you know, I think it's a really great experience. I think people would underestimate the time they have in their lives for something like that, right? 4 hours a month is really not too much to ask, depending on whose life it is. But it can make all of the difference in the world for your match friend to have that social connection and have that outlet to engage with their community. The second thing we need is board members. A lot of the board members on the board right now either were part of the founding board or have been on for many, many years. And many of them have said that they, you know, would love to, you know, move on from the board, but they really like the work, so they stayed on for this long. But many have noted that having new people come on, bring fresh ideas, fresh connections, and perspectives is really beneficial. And I agree. I really enjoy the new board members we've brought on, and I think it really only serves to benefit the program overall. The last thing is funding and publicity. So Compeer is not its own nonprofit program, not our own 501c3. We are a nonprofit program. We just do not have a 501c3 status. That said, we kind of do rely on in-kind donations from our community, as well as donations from some of our business partners. We do continually look for avenues of funding to help our program stay afloat and help our program expand, whether that be grants or new connections. That's something that we use to help grow. And generally that money is going toward events, going towards supplies administratively, and that sort of thing. So we try our best to always, you know, stay engaged with our community, engage with our partners, but also stay, you know, vigilant for other opportunities for funding. and publicity, right? So as I said, getting our name out there is a big part of growing the program and getting volunteers in the door and getting therapists to refer participants to us. And so just having more people know about Compeer does benefit us. That's part of the reason I'm here today. Not only do I really believe in the program itself, but I want more people to know about us. I want more people to think about us when they think about nonprofit programs in our area that are accessible and do really good work in our community around mental health and around social support. So a few testimonials here. This is from some of our participants who have agreed to share their words with you. So Mary said, my Compeer friendship definitely enhances my life. Compeer matched us well, which I love to hear, knowing that the Compeer directors are doing a really good job of matching people up. It really cultivates these really meaningful and long-lasting friendships between people that are often extremely supportive. Margalie is quoted saying, my Compeer friend is a person of simple kindness that helps when I'm hurting. I look forward to seeing her every time we are together. And I think that kind of speaks to the kind of connections that are brought by this program. Not only is it, a friendship, but it's also an avenue to give support and be supported. So these testimonials from our volunteers. These people also have agreed to share their words with you today. Sherry said, my Compeer friend is 17 years and I spend time together doing things that we both enjoy. We both enjoy sharing our friendships. So 17 years, and that's probably a number that's gone up since she gave that quote as well. So you can see that these connections tend to stand the test of time, right? Especially if they're people who are, established here in the community and have built a really quality friendship with their Compeer match. Emily is quoted as saying, what started off as a way to give back turned into one of the most meaningful relationships of my life. I know I've talked to Emily and I know that she truly means every word of that. Her and her Compeer friend, they've become like family, it seems. And I think that's really special and really a testament to the power that these connections, or the powerful impact rather that these connections can have. So here's a few pictures of some of our volunteers, as well as some of our participants. You can kind of see the joy they have in being together, the connections that they've gotten to make. I've met all of these folks in these pictures and they're wonderful people and they've had long time connections that all started with Compeer. So that's all I have for you. I think I hit the 25-minute mark pretty well. So thank you for listening to Compeer, listening to me talk about Compeer rather. Here's our website information, our phone number, our email, as well as our address. We are on Facebook as well if you would like our page, and I try to stay active on there as well with all of our people. And I know that we are going to have some time for questions as well. I see Diane with her hand up. So Diane, if you wanted to say some things about your Compeer experience, please do.
James, I just wanted to give an addendum to what you said. NAMI is the 501c3 fiscal agent for our organization. So we are not funded by NAMI, but they are the fiscal agent. And I just wanted to add that to what you said.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So NAMI, Johnson County, we are under their fiscal wing because our program is not large enough to be its own 501c3. Yeah, so that is right. But I think I'll stop sharing now and then take any questions that we have.
Yep, and James, I want to thank you. I think all of us can really see from your expressions and your presentation the passion you have for the great work you do. So thank you for sharing that message with us today. And I see Mark Priest has a question. Mark?
Yeah, thanks, James. I really appreciated your presentation. Some years ago, we went frequently to an annual musical event to support Compeer. Is there any chance that that's going to be renewed?
Yes, yeah, I am glad you brought that up. Thank you, Mark, for asking. Yes, so annually, the Compeer Advisory Board puts on a concert called Sound of Friendship, and that is a great way to support Compeer. It did not happen in 2021, or actually, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it did not happen in 2021 due to COVID-19, but it should be happening in our next fiscal year. So it should be coming around as we begin 2022. The board has been talking about putting that event on, with their minds to, public health and how best is to carry that out. So it did not happen in the past year. It will be hopefully coming back. But yeah, thank you for asking. Sound of Friendship is a great event.
Any other questions? If you have one, feel free to go to reactions and click raise hand and we'll call on you. James, I was going to ask kind of the age range of your participants. It sounds like it's 18 up to whatever that number is. So a great range, great variety of ages.
Yeah, exactly. So we definitely have a range of ages when it comes to volunteers and participants. So I know there's people on our wait list right now that are late 20s, early 30s, and then there are matches who are, in their 60s and 70s. And I think I just trained a volunteer who is in his early 80s, but he's really excited to be matched up with somebody, and he has a lot of great experience behind him personally to be a great volunteer. So yeah, quite the range, and I think really anyone of any age and experience can benefit from either being a volunteer or a participant.
Great. LaDonna, I see you have your hand raised.
I do. This is not so much a question, but a comment. And you said that you have just 10 matches, but that is, it doesn't sound like many, but the hope that is given to people by having that friendship and with someone in our community, and the help that the person can give is just absolutely enormous. I know I worked with NAMI for a while, and it made such a difference when people got out of their isolation and had someone that cared about them and supported them. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, LaDonna. I definitely agree. And like I said, there's been more matches. There's been fewer matches. Our snapshot of where we were, yeah, that's kind of where we were at the beginning of this year. And I'm always happy to make more matches. I made a couple matches during 2020, which was by itself fairly interesting to do, both virtually for all of the described interviewing and such. But yeah, especially last year, I think, watching the matches kind of connect during lockdown or just during points where they themselves had to be isolating personally, it made a big difference to them to know that they had somebody who was going to consistently connect with them. So yeah, I definitely agree. And like I said, I'm happy and excited to continue making matches and continue growing our numbers.
Great. Any other final questions for James? If not, James, in honor of your presentation, our Rotary Club and Rotary International, it's been a mission of ours for the last 40 years to eradicate polio. And a lot of the young folks, they've heard of polio, but they're not familiar with it. And that's a good thing that they don't have to deal with it. And that's in big part to the leadership that Rotary's provided to eradicate this terrible disease in polio. So our Rotary Club is going to make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Polio Plus program, and that'll be matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So that'll result in 70 polio vaccinations around the world in your honor. We do that for every speaker. So thank you again for joining us today.
Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's very unexpected, and I think that's great. Thank you so much.
And James, yeah, feel free to join us. We meet every Thursday at noon, always looking for good, young, energetic members. And final reminders, our program for next Thursday is Newman Abusa. He is an Iowa Department of Transportation engineer, and he's going to be talking about the Interstate 80-380 interchange, kind of talking about where they're at, what the final product is going to look like, and what the timeline is there. It should be a very interesting program. And we end every meeting with the Rotary four-way test. So I'll ask Devin if you could share the four-way test for us. And if everyone could please unmute yourself and join me in the four-way test of the things we think,
say, or
do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better
friendships?
Will be beneficial to all concerned. Hope everyone has a great week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday. So thanks, guys.